Imagine that you're in the same career for over 2 decades, and then you realize there's no future. What do you do? Who do you turn to? And can you actually pivot? Jeff Weiskopf has the most incredible story of deep determination and amazing Jewish values. Listen to his story this week on Jewish Grit. Jeff, just so we could get to know who we're talking to, share with us a little bit, maybe in 60 seconds or so, about your personal journey, like where you're from and kind of how you got to where you are today. And then we'll jump into your professional journey as well.
So I was born and bred in Manhattan, in an area called Washington Heights. My father was an immigrant. My father's an actually interesting story. My father came to this country when he was 10 years old. He had very little Jewish education. He went to public school. Somehow, my grandparents, at 18 years old, he was drafted in the United States Army. He kept kosher, he kept Shabbos somehow, and then he went to college, graduated a degree in mechanical engineering, married my mother. My father, actually, only upon his retirement, started to learn Torah. And during those years, he finished Shas twice.
So he finished the entire Talmud?
Twice.
Wow.
And it inspired me. It inspired me to start learning Daf Yomi.
That's like a daily, 1 page a day.
Inspired me. If my father can do it, I can do it. So now I'm on my second cycle.
Amazing.
And some of my children are doing this as well. And I went for 1 year, I learned in Israel. Then I came back to Washington Heights and I learned for 5 years in Beis Medrash. At the same time, I went to college at night. Mm-hmm. I actually found that to be a relatively easy experience, both in terms of scholastically and religiosity, because I only went with an insular group. Mm-hmm. It was girls and boys, but we went together to college at night.
Where did you go to school?
Baruch.
Oh, Baruch.
I finished college. I finished the 4 years in about 2.5 years. And really, I wasn't so interested. I was doing it to please my parents. I did have ambitions to go into business. At that time, you needed a college degree. People were not as entrepreneurial as they are today. Mm-hmm. And I was taught that was the path to success. Mm-hmm, sure. You get a degree and you do something. I think the entire United States has woken up that that's not the only path today. And matter of fact, going to college today probably sometimes could be detrimental. I had a number of jobs till I landed in the jewelry manufacturing business, which had nothing to do with anything I've ever learned. I learned that business. I became the head of sales of a pretty substantial firm, and I sold all the major retailers. It was almost 20 years of that. Commuting to Midtown Manhattan, both in terms of when I lived in the city, also when we moved up here to Rockland County. That grew old. It grew old. The industry changed. There were things that happened in my life that I wanted to make a change. There were aspects that weren't good for me in terms of having to travel to Las Vegas a lot, in terms of dinners. Fashion business is not an easy business for an Orthodox Jew to conduct themselves properly, and it got worse as time went on. It forced me to start thinking about what I really want to do with my business career.
So that's amazing. You're 2 decades in one particular,
almost
niche,
2 decades, yeah.
And then you realize it's not the right
part
thing.
Part of it also the opportunities didn't come. I don't know if at that time in my life I was so thinking of I'm going to start my own thing. So it was a lot of things came together for me in my mind, and like everything else. If I had to give people one of the messages that you want me to give out there is mazel, good luck. It's God leading you to certain things, and things that look detrimental to you are really to your benefit. And I had to make a change. I met my now lifelong friend and partner, Srili Rozel. He is today the president of Yeshiva Spring Valley, as well as the president of other schools. He actually had a very established adult care facility business at that time. And we did the tuition for this school, meeting parents, deciding those that couldn't pay, how much scholarship to give them, etc. And we hit it off. I wouldn't say we were best friends, but we certainly developed a relationship. And I was sitting with him one night, and we decided to go into the real estate business.
Together.
And the biggest mistakes that I made in the real estate business were the original deals that we made. And they burdened us for quite a few years, but it got us off the ground, and it was the way I learned the business. Both of us never dreamed we'd have the success in the business that we did. And like I said, I owe it to nothing but good mazel. And he also was the basis to show me how to take that responsibility to the klal seriously.
In terms of communal work.
In terms of communal work. Today, our office is probably the central location for many, many different charity causes, rabbis coming to visit, yeshivas using our offices. But I owe a lot of that to him, to showing me that this is what we do with our time. I don't think he ever sat down and said, this is what we're going to do. It just evolved. I had been commuting from up here in Rockland County to the city on a bus. And anybody that's done commuting knows this is the most aggravating experience you can have, especially to New York City. And on a good day, door to door, I had a round trip of 3 hours. 20 years ago, there wasn't as much opportunity for people to have business locally. It wasn't in vogue to work from home or to have a home office. It's really evolved in the last 20 years, that concept that today is taken for granted. And so I had this extra 3-4 hours a day. And to my wife's credit, my wife suggested, why don't you go learn?
Study Torah.
Study Torah. And I had been learning at night at all times. This was sort of a strange concept to me. When I started the day, instead of going to work, we're going to do this. Okay. Talk to my partner about it. Let's see. He says, yeah, let's do it. Someone directed me to the local kollel. Kollel is a group of people that devote their lives to learning full time.
Torah. Torah
Right.
from the morning till night.
From morning till night.
How do they sustain themselves?
Their wives work, and people support them. It's a privilege for people to support them. It's a combination. And not that I was going to do this full time, but this particular group was in a place where also businessmen learned part of the day there. And so I walked in day one. To this day, I'm sitting in the same place.
Wow.
Now, we built a new building since then, so it's not the physical same seat, but it's the same group, same everything. Changed my life.
How many years ago was this?
This is now 21 years ago. And it changed my life. Why did it change my life? Because when you start off your day engrossed in Torah study, you're a different person. And you're a different person now when you go out in the world and you interact with the world. And I've learned that who you are, how you think of yourself, reflects in how people look at you and how you give off. Not only that, I created a business and a business environment in a Orthodox Jewish setting where people behave and speak properly. Yes, there are men and women in the office, but they treat each other with respect. There's no flirtatiousness, God forbid. There's no really intermingling. There's no off-color jokes. People conduct themselves properly. And it's all because we set this tone when we started. And I have learned over time that you can conduct yourself in this manner, and it's not a contradiction to being a successful business. So that learning in that kollel in the morning changed my life in many, many different ways. I established a relationship with people. I associate myself with this. It's who I am. And I'm associating with people who are learning full-time, who have very different lives than I do, and they look at me as somebody who's helping them. And so that made a very, very big difference.
Can I just double-click on something? So you still are going to this kollel every single morning?
21 years, same people.
How long do you spend there every single morning?
Between an hour and a half a morning, I'm there. And
and
regularly an hour and a quarter.
What do you study?
We study Talmud.
Talmud.
We study Talmud in depth. In depth. Knows we do all the explanations to it, how it affects our present lives, what in the Jewish world we call halacha l'maisa, how it affects the laws that we deal with in our daily lives. It's broad, but it's an in-depth, and you can do in-depth when you're not tired in the morning. So it lends itself to the first thing in the morning. I'm sitting there with my coffee, learning for an hour and a half.
What time do you get to the office every day?
About 10:30.
Wow. And then what time do you leave?
It varies, but 6:30. My office now is 5 minutes from my house.
And currently you do real estate. What do you
So
do?
now my main business is multifamily. We own and operate. Now we're at about 10,000. At height it was about 12,000 and change apartments. It's up and down the East Coast. Since then I've evolved. I have partnerships in other businesses and investments in private equity businesses. I have investments. We're also doing private equity. We have a warehouse business. I've done other things. We have some big development going on.
Can I take you back about 20 years ago? So the sun is setting on your, I guess, jewelry sales business, whatever it is, and it's kind of scary. I'm assuming at that point you have family and children and you've got many things to take care of and you have to find something new. Did you ever dream at that point that you'd kind of be where you are today?
Not for 1 second. My wife was working at that time. She had a very good job, and that helped give us a little bit of a security blanket. As I said, my partner was willing to take a chance. So that also provided a little bit of a security blanket, but never dreamed any of this would happen to me. And like I said, it's mazel. I can't stress that. I can't stress that enough. that there are so many times in your life that you need to open up and see that God runs your life, the life of all Jews and the world. It's a real trick to see that and to realize that you can work very hard. That doesn't mean you're always going to be successful. You see very smart people that don't have any degree of success on any aspect of their lives. You see people who never finished high school and they're billionaires. How could that be? You see people that have great children, you people that don't have it as great children. You see people that have good health, people that don't have. Now you can say, health you can't control. Everything. No, everything's the same. Everything's like that. You just have to open up your eyes to it and see it. That not anything you do can be controlled, but realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, that it functions as if it's a natural occurrence. And that's the reason you have to work hard. But know that working hard is not necessarily what's going to lead to your success. What's the proof, for example? And let's take my field, real estate. I've had deals where I thought, this is a grand slam.
Slam dunk.
How can you go wrong? And you work on it, it doesn't go. And I've had things that, okay, it'll be okay. And it's unbelievable. Like we have times, for example, we refinanced something recently and made a lot of money. My partner says to me, why did we take investors into this and dilute ourselves? Because you didn't know that this was going to work. The answer is on all this is to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. We're not in control. Do the best you can. Doesn't mean you can't lie down the street and say, nothing's going to happen, because he doesn't run the world that way. But know that your success or your lack thereof has nothing to do with your hard work, which is a point I wanted to make on something we said before. Coming in at 10:30 in the morning has no bearing if I'm going to be successful or not, because you work hard, but I work a little more or a little less. At the end of the day, when there's a summation of everything you've done, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't. It's not consistent whether you worked hard or didn't hard, whether the deal works out. And so when you come to grips with that, you realize it doesn't make a difference if you come in at 10:30 in the morning. Are there times that there's an emergency and I have to go in and I have to try? Of course. You have to live your life within normal means. But by and large, it's incongruous. It doesn't go together.
Fantastic. Can I ask you a question? Do you have like a mentor, someone that you go to in life when you need to make personal decisions? We're not always objective. We just need another opinion, or someone that you go to professionally when you really need somebody to chime in from the outside?
You're not talking about business. You're talking about life decisions?
Either or,
So in business, I'm a little bit past that. Everyone can learn. Mm-hmm. And yes, I've had business questions from time to time, because everyone does, certainly when I was younger. But now there are some older people in the business world that I've asked the question once in a while. Mm-hmm. But when you have a life decision of, do I take this path? Do I do that? Do I put more emphasis on that? Or even as much as when you're in business, people come at you sometimes. Not that I'm involved in any fights and I walk away from fights and I've compromised fights, but it's inevitable in business. And when you need to make decisions, you have to find great people in the Jewish world. I have found personally more elderly people bring a degree of Torah knowledge and life experience together more than younger rabbis. You might say a younger rabbi is more with it, he knows what's going on in the world. It's not so. It's not so. Real rabbis understand contemporary life. And maybe they don't understand exactly what a podcast is, but they don't have to understand what a podcast is. But I have searched out people who are older, who have seen previous generations, have seen previous life experience, and I find that the most valuable thing to have. It's always interesting to note how our whole life, the Jewish world, is based on what our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our previous rabbis said and did. Everything in our life is based on that. The best people to have that is those that have the connection to the previous generation. Yes, today there are some dynamic young rabbis, but they don't always have the mileage that the older people did. And I'm not talking people who are frail and can't speak and right. Losing their mind. That's an extreme. Right. But I try to search out people that are a little bit older rather than younger to have that combination of Torah knowledge and life experience.
Very smart. Do you think that, as your career has evolved, as your family has grown, that your definition of success has changed, like from when you were starting out 20 years in and then where you are today?
Absolutely. When you're younger, you think about money. Everybody worries. Everybody. On their level, they worry. Everybody wants to always make more money. There's a Gemara, a Talmud saying that Kana Mana Ratzah Masayim. Everybody that has 100 wants 200. Everybody on their level is that. Everyone and every insurance salesman will tell you that you never have enough money, just like you never have enough life insurance, right? Everyone always worries that whatever money they've accumulated, it's not going to be enough, and when the end, it's going to run out. So there's no question about it that you think of these things when you're younger. I don't care who you are. With small exceptions, has to be that people think that way. Everyone on their level, right? But as you get older, especially as you have some success in business, you realize that it's not the driving force anymore. And don't get me wrong, I want to be successful. I want to make money. Again, like I said, everyone does. But you realize that your legacy is left by who your children are, who your grandchildren are, how they conduct themselves, how people look at that, your relationship with Ribono Shalom, your relationship with your wife. And by the way, I can't say that enough. My wife is a big part of everything here. I mean, we can talk about that separately. And if your wife is not on board with what you're doing and your outlook on life, it's not going to work either. As you get older, you realize that your legacy is only what you leave over. The rest is not going with you.
You can't take the money to the grave.
No, not even close. My partner's mother just passed away last week. She was 94, 95, whatever. At the funeral, some of the rabbis were talking about, look at the family she left behind. Okay? One of them is my partner. And these are upstanding Orthodox Jews. And she has 150 descendants. Wow. Why am I bringing this up? I'm walking out of the funeral with a man who is one of my mentors in communal work. Man who lives in Muncie. What does he say to me? He says to me, look what this lady left behind. And we talked for a minute as we were walking out. When you go, that's all that counts, what they say about you. Look what he left, whether he wrote things about Jewish life, whether he accomplished things for the Jewish people, if his children behave themselves properly, if they conduct themselves properly. No one says, look, that he's a rich man, he died a rich man. Like, what's the difference? We all fall into the trap of money, especially in the United States as it is today, where there's so many different things pulling at you to live the good life, so to speak. Go to a funeral, and I assure you that that's the most sobering thing you can do.
It's a real wake-up call.
Right, as long as you're a thinking person.
What's the single best piece of advice that you think you would give our viewership? Somebody who is maybe in the early 20s, trying to figure out professionally where to go, build a family. What's the single piece of advice that you would tell them that you think could really help them?
First of all, you have to have a wife that's on the same page as you.
Or a husband.
Or husband, right? Or husband, as far as your outlook on religiosity and your beliefs. If you're not on the same page, it's going to cause problems. Number two, you have to structure your life that you can balance things. People have difficulty balancing. Now, granted, Mazel doesn't give everybody the same opportunity to balance everything, but balance out your life, your children, your religiosity, your learning, your work. One without the other is going to leave you yearning for something. You're going to feel yourself missing something. The most successful people, and it depends how your definition of success is, are those that have found that balance.
Can I push you a little further?
Yeah.
How do you find balance?
It's a process. It's a process. You're not going to read a book. No psychologist is going to write a book and tell you how to find balance. But I think like any problem, think about it first. The first thing to do, if you're already thinking about it, you've already done some of it. That's true. Now, some of it evolves, because I don't think there's anybody who's in their 50s or 60s or 70s who says, when I was 20 years old, I had my whole life planned for me, and it worked out exactly that way. A friend has a book, says, listen to your messages. Everyone has a few messages in life that they have to hear, where God is literally talking to them, and listen to them. And as things happen, say, oh yeah, this is my moment. And sometimes you look back and say, how did this happen? I've had the privilege of getting to know some of the greatest rabbinic scholars of our generation today. Why? Hashem gave me a little extra money, and somehow the word got out there, and I started giving some of that money away. So they started coming. And without realizing it, I started to develop relationships with these people. Now, granted, I had to have that opportunity for the door to open, but myself and my children know some of these people today. That has to leave an impression on your life. And what great people can do is they impress upon you just by living their life on a higher plane, how to live your life. It affects you. If you're associated with very good people, it's going to affect your life. And I can enumerate many people like this that we have the privilege of knowing, being in their homes, them being in our homes, that makes a huge difference in your life. And the second thing is to realize that life is a responsibility. It's a responsibility to your wife or your husband, to your children, and it's a responsibility to the Jewish people. And especially when you have a degree of financial success, it's all about the responsibility for the Jewish people. It's not about buying another building or making another $1 million. And don't get me wrong, I want another $1 million. But that's not what it's about. It's about giving back. A lot of people don't realize that they too can do it. Very, very few people put themselves out there and go raise funds, organize, step out of their comfort zone and give back. And that's a big responsibility that comes with a certain degree of success. Especially now during the war, is you see how Jews come together and how we really are so different than others, how we sing and pray in times of adversity, how we bond together, and it doesn't make a difference, more religious, not religious. At the beginning of the war, after October 7th, I had the privilege of going to Gaza. We were right outside Gaza. There was a rehabilitation center where they brought in a lot of soldiers just to get a good meal and to dance and sing and to get a breather and take a shower before they went back into Gaza. And this is toward the beginning of the war. And we were down there, and my son calls me over to meet a group of soldiers. None of them were religious. They were Israeli soldiers. None were religious. And my son who's an enchanting young man. He was enthralling them, talking to them. And he brought him over. This is my father. And one of them asks me, "Why are you here?" Which is a very normal question. Like, what are you doing here, right? And I told him, I'll say it in English, I said, there's not a synagogue or a Jewish girls' school or kollel or yeshiva or any place in America where we are not praying for you every single day. And I came to tell you that you're not alone. And every single synagogue in America is praying for you, the soldiers, every day for your safety. And this non-religious guy says to me, keep praying. We're seeing miracles every single day. But when the chips are down and he's in that tank, that he's counting on your prayers, and that it bonds us. And you see all types of Jews bond together when times are tough. When everything's going great, we're killing each other. But it's an amazing thing.
I'd love to have a second conversation to I guess, revisit your definition of success maybe in a few years from now, or maybe before that. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Jewish Grit, an Olami mentorship podcast. At Olami Mentorship, we believe that everyone needs a mentor. What better way is there to tap into your personal and professional potential than with a Jewish mentor at your side? Learn more at olami.org/mentorship. Don't forget to keep listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.